Growing old without explaining yourself. There comes a point in life when you stop feeling the need to explain who you are and start simply being who you are. When you're young, you spend so much time trying to prove yourself. You want people to understand your choices, your silence, your dreams, your mistakes. You keep explaining why you are the way you are because you think understanding will bring acceptance. But growing old teaches you a beautiful truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for being yourself. Age doesn't just bring wrinkles. It brings wisdom. It brings a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am. I've lived enough to know what matters. You no longer chase validation. You stop defending your peace. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You realize that the people meant for you will never need an explanation. They will feel your heart even in silence. And the ones who demand explanations for your boundaries, your healing, your solitude are the ones you outgrow. There is such freedom in that. Freedom in not explaining why you walked away from certain people, why you no longer attend every gathering, why you no longer respond the same way. You've earned your peace. And peace doesn't come with footnotes. You begin to understand that silence is not arrogance, it's self-respect. You don't need to justify why you chose peace over chaos, rest over rush, solitude over noise. You don't need to explain why your circle got smaller or why your heart got softer. Life has taught you that your growth doesn't need to be announced. It only needs to be lived. When you grow old without explaining yourself, you walk lighter. You move through life with grace. You don't argue to prove your point. You just live your truth. You don't try to make people see your worth. You embody it. Every year adds another layer of calm to your soul. You learn that peace is not in being understood, but in understanding yourself. And when you finally do, the world can think what it wants because you're no longer performing for its approval. Let them talk. Let them question. Let them assume. You have nothing to prove. You've earned the right to be quiet, the right to choose yourself, the right to walk away without guilt. That's what growing old gracefully really means, to stop explaining and start living unapologetically, to stand tall in who you've become, to honor the lessons that shape you, to say, this is me, no explanation needed. And when you reach that place, life becomes softer, yet stronger. You no longer chase after people, you attract peace. You no longer explain your worth, you embody it. You no longer fear being misunderstood because you finally understand yourself. That is the power of growing old without explaining yourself. There comes a moment in life when you start realizing that the opinions of others no longer hold the same weight they once did. In your younger years, you might have lived by the applause, measuring your worth through how much people admired, accepted, or validated you. You wanted to be seen, heard, and approved. You tried to explain every choice, every dream, every decision just to prove that your heart was in the right place. But as you grow older, something inside you begins to shift. You start understanding that peace doesn't come from being understood by others. It comes from understanding yourself deeply. You begin to see that external validation is fragile. It changes as quickly as the weather. One day people will love you, the next they'll doubt you. And if your peace depends on that, you'll spend your whole life chasing approval that was never yours to begin with. You stop running after people's applause because you finally realize it was never the applause that made you worthy. It was you all along. You were enough, even before anyone noticed. Self-acceptance is not a one-time decision. It's a lifelong practice. It's waking up every morning and choosing to stand with yourself, even when the world doesn't. It's saying, I like who I am becoming, even if others don't understand your growth. It's forgiving yourself for your past mistakes, celebrating your small wins, and being patient with your journey. When you accept yourself, you stop begging others to see your light. You start walking in it. The truth is, not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will agree with the way you live, love, or heal, and that's okay. You don't need to explain why you outgrew certain friendships or why you no longer tolerate things that disturb your peace. You don't need to justify your boundaries or your silence. You've learned that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's sacred. You stop trying to fit into spaces that shrink you. You stop over-explaining your softness, your strength, your solitude. You simply live fully and honestly, without apology. There is incredible peace in not needing to be liked by everyone. Because when you no longer seek to please, you begin to live with intention. You speak your truth even when your voice shakes. You honor your heart even when the crowd disagrees. You trust yourself enough to stand alone if needed. That's when you truly grow. Not when the world claps for you, but when you clap for yourself in the silence of your own becoming. Self-acceptance teaches you to stop comparing your path to anyone else's. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's timeline or success. You stop scrolling through other people's highlights thinking you're behind. You start seeing that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should. You begin to thank the detours, the heartbreaks, the delays, because they shaped the person you've become. You stop apologizing for not being perfect, and you start celebrating the beauty of being real. When you reach that place of deep self-acceptance, your energy changes. You move differently. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg for attention, you command respect. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You stop explaining your peace to those who thrive in chaos. You finally understand that your life doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. The more you understand yourself, the quieter you become. You stop explaining your dreams because you know that people who don't share your vision will never understand your direction. You stop defending your heart because you know your intentions are pure. You stop proving your worth because you finally know it. You realize that peace doesn't need witnesses. It just needs alignment. You start living for moments that feel right to your soul instead of moments that look right to others. You choose authenticity over popularity, inner joy over outer noise. You stop needing to be liked and start focusing on being true. You realize that the only validation that truly matters is the one that comes from within. The quiet knowing that you are doing your best, that you are becoming who you were meant to be. And that's when real freedom begins. When you no longer chase to be seen, but choose to see yourself. When you no longer wait to be loved, but choose to love yourself first. When you no longer need approval because you have finally learned to approve of your own life. Self-acceptance isn't arrogance, it's peace. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about knowing you don't need to compete. It's about being at home in your own skin, knowing that who you are is enough, even when nobody claps. It's about waking up every day and saying, I am whole, even as I grow. As you grow older, you stop performing, you stop pretending, You stop editing yourself to fit into someone else's story. You learn that the most beautiful thing you can ever be is yourself, unfiltered, unforced, unapologetic. You realize that peace was never found in someone's approval. It was always waiting for you in your own acceptance. There comes a point in life when silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling sacred. You begin to realize that not every thought deserves to be spoken, not every reaction deserves your energy, and not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. Silence becomes more than just the absence of words. It becomes a form of self-respect. It's the space where peace lives, where wisdom grows, and where you finally learn that your energy is not for everyone to consume. When you're younger, you may feel compelled to explain everything, your choices, your emotions, your boundaries. You defend yourself to people who never intended to understand you. You overtalk your worth to those who are committed to doubting it. You exhaust yourself trying to prove that your intentions were good, your heart was pure, and your path was right. But with time, you learn that real power doesn't shout. It simply stands firm. Silence, then, becomes your loudest statement. You no longer feel the need to explain why you chose peace over chaos, why you walked away from certain people, or why you stopped engaging in unnecessary battles. You start realizing that peace isn't something you find, it's something you protect. And protecting it often requires quiet distance. Silence allows you to hear your own voice above the noise of the world. It teaches you to respond less and reflect more. When you choose silence, people may misunderstand it. They might call it pride, arrogance, or indifference. But silence isn't arrogance. It's clarity. It's knowing that your time, your words, and your peace are valuable. It's understanding that not every situation deserves your reaction. Because when you know your worth, you stop explaining it. You stop arguing with people who thrive on conflict, and you start prioritizing your mental and emotional health. You learn that silence is not weakness. It's self-retroth. It's maturity. It's grace under pressure. It's the strength to say, I don't need to prove my point. I just need to protect my peace. You stop giving long explanations to people who only listen to respond, not to understand. You realize that peace doesn't need defending, it needs preserving. And sometimes the best response to noise is no response at all. There's a quiet kind of dignity in not reacting, in walking away from the drama, not because you're afraid, but because you've outgrown the need to participate. Silence becomes your filter. It separates what deserves your attention from what doesn't. It becomes your protection against people who drain your energy or twist your words. You start to see that your silence speaks volumes. It says, I value my peace more than your opinion. When you hold your silence, you start hearing things differently. You begin to notice how much noise people create just to avoid facing their own emptiness. You see how often people speak to fill silence, not to share truth. You stop feeling the urge to fill every moment with words and start finding comfort in quiet spaces, because those are the moments where you meet yourself again. Silence also reveals who truly understands you. The right people will never demand constant explanations. They'll feel your energy even when you say nothing. They'll respect your pauses because they know that your silence isn't distance, it's peace. The wrong ones will misinterpret it, but that's no longer your burden to carry. You've learned that it's not your job to make yourself understandable to everyone. It's your job to live authentically, even if that means not being understood by some. In silence, you begin to rebuild yourself. You reconnect with your intuition. You learn to listen to your inner voice without the interference of outside opinions. You find that silence is not empty. It's full of answers. It's in those quiet moments when you realize that you don't need to chase clarity from others. You can create it within yourself. There is strength in choosing not to engage. Strength in knowing that not every attack needs a defense. Strength in understanding that sometimes walking away is the most powerful statement you can make.